Hi there, my name is Jennifer and I am the owner of Grassland Beauty, which is a tallow-based business. And I thought I could talk about why, where is it? I'm ad-libbing this, so bear with me. I'll try to be as fast as I can. Things I wish I would have done before starting my tallow business. If you're new here, please like and subscribe and read the description for all my links in there. You can go over and look at my business page. I have a new Patreon that I just started, which I will be filling up with free information here. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a membership tier with that, but if I do, I'll be talking about it. But I'm very active on Instagram and hopefully going to be very active here on YouTube and just sharing all the stuff I've learned over the last 5 years. So I started my business in 2020 and I was very wet behind the ears. And back then tallow was it wasn't new, but it was just starting to get some attention. And so there was a lot of things I did on the way that looking back, I probably would have done different. So if that interests you, stick around, like and subscribe. And let's get started. Now, these are not going to be in any particular order. I am just sharing them as they come up. I wouldn't say one is greater than the other. These are just things I've thought about. So, number one, which should be at the top of the list, is learn actual formulating skills. This is a big one. So, like many people, I started out in my kitchen. Very quickly after learning how to render tallow is when I basically started making products with no background in cosmetic chemistry or formulating or any of that. That seems to be the norm these days, where you can just look up a recipe from your favorite, natural blogger and make a formula. And tallow, like a tallow balm, is pretty self-explanatory, so it wasn't like that difficult. But I just wish I would have learned just better skills before I just jumped into it. Like, just to give an example, this is something I didn't do, but learning about preservatives and proper formulating when it comes to water of any kind. So it wasn't long after I started my business that I started offering hydrosols as part of my product line, and I did not add a preservative the first few times that I made it, and I was selling it pretty quickly. So that is an example of where you need to have some kind of knowledge of how to properly formulate, good manufacturing practices. So formulating in a clean area that isn't mixed in with the rest of your house. Now, when you're just getting started, you have no choice. You're going to be making stuff in your kitchen. You're likely rendering tallow in your kitchen. And hopefully it's clean when you do formulate, but we want to have things as clean as possible and as professional as possible. So that's just something I really wish I would have learned beforehand. I think a lot of us just jump into it because we're so excited and we want to start our own business and have some recognition and we want to see if it's going to be successful. So I wish I would have done that. So if you are a new business, look up good formulating skills, look up proper, GMP practices, and try to stick to that as closely as you can. Wear gloves when handling products and tallow, or making sure everything's sanitized, like your jars, before you put your tallow balms into it, not getting any water or moisture in things, not mixing aloe vera gel with tallow and just selling it as is. I've actually seen that quite a few times. And it's not just with tallow. I've seen people mixing aloe vera with oils and just calling it a serum and no preservative. So just think about those things. Oil and water don't mix unless they have an emulsifier, and if you do mix them, they need a preservative, always, 100% of the time. So yeah. And that kind of goes into my second point, which was I wish I would have been GMP compliant earlier and not doing things in my house the first year. Pretty quickly, I set aside a special place, like a part of my house that was strictly for formulating, and I didn't have my personal stuff over there. I didn't have food over there. I didn't have anything over there, and then I moved into a completely separate area outside of my house that is just for formulating and my business side of it. And so I'm able to keep it really clean and GMP compliant. So that's the goal. If you are into tallow or starting a business, you want to have a separate area where you can really control the sanitization, the cleanliness of it, and no bacteria is really getting in there as best to your abilities. Nobody's gonna be perfect, but you wanna do your best. So here's a good one. I wish I would have had, the next one would be, I wish I would have had a realistic view slash not comparing myself or my business to other businesses. So I wish I wouldn't have had expectations, but still having hope and goals for my business. So what that means is I wish I would have had a more realistic view getting started. I think when you are new at starting any kind of business, but especially a tallow business today, things are super saturated. I mean, everyone and their mom has a tallow business now. So when I started in 2020, I kind of had this view and vision that I was going to start selling just a few products and it was just going to take off. And that was the goal and the expectation. Not realizing until I got into it that is never going to happen for the most part. 99% of the time, if you're a new business starting out, and especially a small business, and you don't have the means for expensive marketing or to outsource your ads or your marketing for your business, and you're doing it all by yourself, then it's going to be moving at a snail's pace. It's little by little, and you have to kind of establish yourself first. And you do that mostly nowadays through social media and online, because everything is online now. And so I just wish, looking back, I would have knew that sooner going into it, that it wasn't going to be like a huge success the first even 3 or 4 years. I mean, I'm 5 years into it, and I feel like this last 1 to 2 years, I've finally seen some, regularity as far as my finances and what's coming in. And I've had an established customer base, people that have been with me for a long time that buy regularly, and an established, social media following. And it's taken years to get to that point. And so going into it, if you're thinking, I'm just going to be successful because it's such a niche item, tallow, that everybody wants it, it's in such high demand, it's just going to fly off the shelves, like I'm not going to even be able to keep it in stock. That is not usually the case. And so it's hard to accept that, and it's hard to really just be okay with moving slowly, and really remember that you don't want instant success. Anything that comes easy is going to be not as appreciated, if you know what I mean. You don't want to be successful immediately. You can't run before you've learned to walk, and you can't walk before you've learned to crawl. It's all the same when it comes to running a business and selling products to a consumer. You have to take baby steps, and it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of trial and error and figuring out what's going to work, what's not going to work. I mean, if it's just you starting this business and you have no help from anybody else, whether it's family, friends, a partner, then you are going to have a lot on your plate. You're going to have to make the products. You're going to have to get the website going or find something to sell your product on. You're going to have to be regular with social media posting. You're going to have to reach out to businesses for possible wholesale or, to carry your product in their stores. It's very time consuming. And if you are a mom or you have a family or you work another job, then it's going to be even more hard. And so if you can just remember that good things take time and hard work does pay off, and you might not see a payoff for years. So just do your best to be okay with where you are right now, and always be looking for more opportunities to grow or sell products somewhere. You really never know what's going to come your way. I had a situation where I was looking for wholesalers for months and nobody wanted to buy wholesale. And it seemed like at the time, most places that were selling tallow had already had a person they were buying from. And so I kind of just gave up and resignated to just, okay, I can't do anything about it. And right when I did that, somebody found my website online that were local. It was a naturopath office, and then they wanted to start doing wholesale with me. I didn't even have to find them, they found me. And so that was like a one-off thing. I mean, that's the only time that's happened to me where somebody's reached out to me. But just know that if you're working hard and you're putting in the effort, you will see a payoff at some point. And don't get discouraged because things are hard right now. And this goes for anybody starting a business, but specifically those wanting to get into the tallow business world. Or maybe you already have a tallow business and you're struggling to see any kind of payoff. I went the first 2 years with my business, I never paid myself I did not pay myself a single dollar. Everything went back into the business because it costs money to keep it running every month. And I was so discouraged by that second year because it just felt like I was working for free. So to have realistic expectations, have no expectations, and do what you need to do little by little, and eventually something will give. And the next thing is, I wish I would have gotten insurance a little bit sooner. I think it's not an absolute requirement if you're going to sell skincare, but it is something you want at some point, because even if you have an LLC and it kind of separates you from your business a little bit, you aren't exempt from getting sued should the wrong person have a reaction to your product, which kind of ties back into the first point of learning actual formulating and not putting out products that are unsafe for the consumers that could come back and sue you if they figure out that whatever they have going on is from your product, which you said was safe. And so, getting insurance kind of covers that a little bit. So there's all kinds of places you can get business insurance, and usually $1 million policy is like suffice, and it usually lasts about a year. And it can be a little expensive, but it also can be kind of more affordable. So it really just depends. And at some point I will go into business insurance and I'll do a video about it. But that's kind of important. I would say the first year, just have some grace for yourself. You're figuring things out. But after that first year, when you're getting more established and you're selling more product, it is a good idea to have insurance. And look at it this way. It also covers you, and you can make claims on your insurance. And so depending on the policy you get, everything's covered. So say you have an accident in your work area and your computer gets damaged, or somebody breaks in and steals it, you can file a claim and they can reimburse for stuff like that. Or you're at a farmer's market and your canopy blows off and damages everything, and everything's a total loss. So they have coverage for stuff like that. So insurance is a good thing to have as a small business. It just kind of protects you from any kind of legal, pushback from a customer or just somebody who's got a bone to pick with you, because you really don't know. Like, people can be petty and you don't know until it happens to you. Like, somebody could sue you for everything. And if you're a small business, like, you don't have anything, that could fold your business. You could lose your business over something like that. So just something to keep in mind. Now, another thing that I wish I wouldn't have done right away. So this may sound completely opposite of what you've heard from other business gurus, small business gurus, and like the advice they give new businesses, especially in skincare, is I wish I wouldn't have niched down right away. So what I mean by that is, you always hear people say, pick a niche, like pick a type of customer you are targeting and niche down with that. So typically in the tallow world, the majority of businesses making tallow and selling it are going to be those in the natural, crunchy, holistic space, because it's considered a natural product, and it's been put on this pedestal as like God's gift to the crunchy community, I guess. It's been rediscovered, even though it's been around forever. But they've really just hyped it up, and it's made tallow extremely in demand these days. But I wish I wouldn't. So when I started my business the first year, I was still trying to figure out what my brand was going to be about, what my brand identity was. I really didn't know. And at the time, I was in that kind of holistic space. I was living that way, which is what drew me to tallow to begin with. And so I did what I thought I was supposed to be doing, which was pushing the kind of holistic, natural living narrative and selling the tallow like that. And so my first year, you can actually go back through my Instagram down to 2021, 2022. It was probably in 2022, because I really didn't get my Instagram started until like the end of 2021, maybe even 2022. But if you go back to the very first few posts, you will see, I don't think I ever deleted them, but you can see that I was very much pushing that kind of narrative and saying, this is toxic, don't use toxic chemicals, use tallow. And I was totally, because I really thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. But when you niche down right away, it's not always a bad thing. If you're for sure, like, that's going to be your customer base and you're not worried about anybody else, then okay, niche down. I mean, you're really trying to figure out who your identity is going to be as a brand. And so what happened was my opinions had started changing the more I actually learned about real formulating and working with water and preservatives and chemicals. And so I had found myself with followers that were following me because they aligned with my values, which they thought were natural, holistic values. And then when I changed my opinions on those things, it was really hard to pull out of that and kind of go a different direction with my customer base. And so what happened was I ended up losing a lot of the customers I had originally had that first year and that I had gained. And so it made me look back and just think, why couldn't I have just sold tallow and just sold it for it being a good option for skincare, not for fighting the system, staying away from toxins. It's better than preservatives. It's natural. It's this, it's that. And, why couldn't I have just sold it without pushing an ideology that first year? Because now I'm kind of backtracking and undoing and going a different direction. And so I did end up losing a lot of the customers that I had gained just because they didn't align with my brand anymore and they went somewhere else, which is fine. But I just wish I would have given myself a little bit of grace that first year and not picked a niche right away. I think into your second and third year, you should have probably a target audience you're going after, because if you're going after everybody, then it's going to be really hard to narrow your advertising down, your marketing, the way you post and connect with your customers. So fast forward to now, where I'm a much more neutral kind of brand identity, and I don't target one specific group with my posting and the things I say and my brand identity and stuff that's on my website. I'm really going for the more just person who is not worried about the toxins and all the other things, and more okay with complex formulating and more stronger actives in their skincare, because I combine tallow with water and vitamin C and niacinamide, and I like that. And so my identity's changed as a brand. And so tying it back in, if you don't niche down your first year and you don't know who your target audience is, you don't even know your brand identity, that's fine. Like, that's normal. You want to figure it out, but you will figure it out as you go along. And you will learn more and more about yourself and who your brand is going to be, who you want it to be in front of your customers, and what you're providing to them as far as your services or your products. So those things will come in time as you figure out what you're doing and what you want to sell and how you want to sell it and who you're targeting. So it seems like a lot of tallow businesses fall into that by default because they're providing a natural product and they think that's who their customer base is going to be. So they only hone in on that one small corner of people. When you are, they end up ignoring like a whole other group of people who maybe are interested in tallow but don't want to ascribe to this narrative that everything's toxic and, mainstream skincare is like bad for them and causing them cancer or something like that. I've had so many people message me and just say, I'm so glad I found you, that you aren't, pushing this ideology on me. You're just selling products. And I'm like, that's great. I'm so glad to hear that. And I'm getting the feeling that everyone's kind of getting tired of that. And so as a skincare brand, and especially a tallow brand, yes, you want to have an identity, but you don't want to be like so niched down that you box yourself in and you can't break out and try new things as far as like formulating different types of products, like offering a lotion instead of just a tallow balm, an emulsified formula, or a face wash of some sort. If you really want to grow your business and be serious about it and try different things and go in new different directions and see what works, then try not to box yourself in. And, I had to learn the hard way. So yeah, those are things I wish I knew before I started my tallow business. I hope maybe that helps somebody. I know it was super specific, but if you have been in the tallow business world at all the last couple years, then you probably will relate to all of these things I just said. So I'm going to leave it at that because my voice is getting scratchy. So please subscribe, I will be coming out with more formulating videos ASAP, just sharing free formulas and things I like to make that you can make yourself at home, especially if you want to learn, especially if you are another tallow business and you really want to get into more hard formulations. I also sell really good formulas on my website that I've tested and tried out and made that have, all the information you need to just get started. If you can make a cupcake recipe, you can make these formulas. So I will link those below and you can check them out. And I will also link my blog so you can that's another thing. I'm just going to throw that out there. If you're a tallow business or a skincare business, start writing blogs because you can really just elaborate so much information and thoughts and convey that to people. And it gets more people interested in what you have to say as a brand and your opinions on things. And you can just share so much information in a blog, more so than in a 5 or 10 minute YouTube video or a Instagram post or a TikTok post. So I will link my blog below. There's a ton of information in there. If you don't know, I've done lab testing on tallow, comparing fatty acids, so you might recognize that blog. But alrighty, I hope you guys have a great day.